company, and we came up with really our own sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs for data. And if you think of a triangle in Maslow, the lower triangles are the more basic needs, and as you move up the triangle, they get advanced. Well, if you look at data and people that are responsible for data, you could put information security at the bottom of that triangle. Information security is very mature as a space, but it's also very people are used to discussing the CIA of data. Like, let's keep it protected, let's keep the Russians from having it, all that stuff. Privacy typically sits next.
See why it was Carrier asked, but
confidentiality, integrity, availability. I'm kidding. For those of you that don't know the acronym, right? You should. And then privacy typically sits above that. And they're relational because you can't have privacy without security, right? You can have security without privacy, but you can't have privacy without security. And then on top of that, as you move up the chain, you get into really the small d, small g data governance, the concept that we have some data, it's of some value, it's of some risk, we better make sure we know where it is, why we have it, where is it going, all that stuff. And then I've added a fourth layer, which would be data strategy. Why do we have it? Do we actually have data as either a supporting commander, as we would say in the military, it helps the business, or data as a supported commander? It itself is the business model, selling, monetizing. So to answer your question, I think I've always struggled with the lack of maturity, continual lack of maturity in the information security space. I mean, we have breaches as of last couple of months that are pretty basic failures, patching failures, stuff that you would think, wow, you've been regulated for how long, you've been under, whatever regime for how long. So honestly, clients range from relatively medium mature to shockingly immature in some cases.
I, as a user, create an email. Am I an employee of the bank? Am I a customer of the bank? Am I a technology person? Am I in the front office like a market maker or a trader? I have certain rights. As an employee of the bank owns the data because I'm getting paid a paycheck to do a job, and I signed an agreement to obey a code of conduct, and so I don't have certain rights that a customer might have. But the customer under GDPR, as a European customer, has the right to be forgotten. And so if they say, erase my data, we have to be able to say, okay, this email that was created and sent to the bank belongs to the customer. We can delete the email, but we own the metadata as the bank around that email and how it was handled, the audit trail of it. So the boundaries are very closely defined, and you have to keep those records under certain strict controls. Who can touch it is very much dependent not just on EU controls in this example, but upon country-specific controls. The unions in Italy have very strict rules about how you treat workers versus the rules in Switzerland, and we're dealing with rules in Hungary and Poland that are very unique and different. The politics in China versus Hong Kong versus Taiwan have very cultural implications, not only political implications. So you have to know the physical boundaries and the IP addresses of the location where the data was created to know how to handle it and how to handle the metadata around it. So
I would like to answer that question.
Yeah. Well, for you. It was for you.
Okay. So first of all, I don't think that true AI is machine learning. That's to start with. People that know me already know.
We're not a general AI yet, right? Yeah.
Yeah, true AI is not machine learning. Machine learning is a subset of AI, and AI is not machine learning. And so the question is how you track the data that is going to be used to train machine learning models, and that's the difficulty. So with machine learning models, I don't think we will be able to control GDPR, for instance. So it's the right to opt out of the AI engine when you use the information and it's not being tracked with any technology. You will not be able to erase the data that is being used to train the machine learning models. And if that data is biased, then the AI engine is expanding the bias, and you are unaware that it's happening.
We're still the legal privacy world is still trying to digest the fundamentals of GDPR, much less I hate to use the word fundamentals and CCPA in the same sentence, but the wacky nonsense that's coming out of the Sacramento in terms of their law. Tagging, metadata management is, it's the holy grail. At least as it relates to, again, we're here, when we're talking data governance, we're talking all data. But when we're talking, privacy, we reduce down to, personal data, personal information. And the holy grail for obviously that would be, if I collected something, I collected in an email, I tag it with all of its attendant obligations, its use case, its lawful basis, all that stuff. And that tag is maintained through the life cycle. The problem is data like that is polyphasic. It can be anything. It can be multiple things at once in an organization. So the legal world, we're still trying to advise clients on the fundamentals. I don't think the regulators certainly haven't tackled that. They barely understand blockchain and how it is or is not personal information. To try to explain to them, and then that's the concept of, are you adding more in order, like, a lot of the things are now is potentially some of the legal obligations under both rules, you might have an obligation to actually create more risk in order to meet the underlying obligations. And so I think the concept of metadata is important, but I think you also have to be looking at the systems involved, metadata around them, because it's objects accessing data as well have to be identified.
Okay. Thank you so much. This has been absolutely enlightening for me personally. But what I've been hearing is that, data governance to me, from what you just described, with the privacy concerns, with the way you have tried to do it at Citibank and some of the modeling, this sounds like taxation to me as an individual. I mean, it's a tax, but when I come from a business, we want to make sure, and the gentleman that asked the question is, how do we make sure that we enable the business to use data while safeguarding privacy concerns as well as meeting the regulatory requirements? So how do you balance the two of them as you come in and you establish a data governance program, or you come up with qualitative modeling from an AI standpoint, or you consult with clients to be safe and reliable? So I'm just curious to know, because when I try to talk about data governance, people always say, hey, you're going to slow us down. And how do you sort of move from slowing us down to be a partner so that we can enable the business?
In my world, in a perfect world, I would look at the ROI of the data, right, and the data uses. If someone's going to use 30,000 emails to do an email campaign, and they're going to move the needle this tiny little bit on any sort of, revenue generation, but the risk around, like you said, the risk around those 30,000 emails is large. So it's just pick some approach, pick some way to judge. Why are you using the data? How is it benefiting our business? And what is the risks for that data while it's in either storage or use? I mean, that's basically what you said. It's fundamental.